group. I know that there will be some people joining us either streaming or will watch this later on. So, since I didn't say hello to them earlier, hello and welcome, and it's good if you're streaming in and linking in, or if you're watching it later, then great, and hopefully you will get some information and some support about what we're doing as a rural working group and what's happening within Sanctuary First as well. So over the next sort of half an hour or so, we're just going to very quickly run through what the Rural Working Group does, what we're about. Now some of you might know, and some of you might not know, so we thought we'd do a quick recap about why does it exist, what does it do, who's on it, and thinking about some of the resources that we've been developing as well. And we've brought some resources for you. And although sometimes you can download them from the Church of Scotland website, we thought it would be quite handy to have some as well, because we knew from going round and doing our last rural road shows that sometimes downloading stuff, if broadband speed isn't great, can be quite cumbersome. So we brought hard copies with us as well for you too. So why does it exist? Well, the sort of background to it was there used to be a rural strategy team. I'm not really sure why it was called RUST. I don't know if that was age, or what it looked like, I don't know. Anyway, it was called RUST for some bizarre reason. And it was part of the councils that were present within our national office. And then there was a reshape, and that then became part of Mission and Discipleship Council. So the Rural Working Group sits within Mission and Discipleship Council. And it kind of sits under, there are lots of different strands, but we kind of come under congregational learning. That's where we're housed at the moment anyway. So within that sort of reshape, we kind of we had regional development officers, and then they became mission development officers, because like new titles. And we have a mission development officer who sort of works part-time for the Rural Working Group and gives her time towards us as well. And therefore, we then became part of mission discipleship, which I think for us was very important, because a lot of what we do encompasses mission, it encompasses learning about making disciples in rural communities. So there's a lot that we look at within the Rural Working Group, and quite a broad spectrum. So what we do, you'll see up there are lots of different things about resources, about development, ministry support, chaplaincy, also partnerships. And we've been working very closely with the Germany Arthur Rank organisation, who are way ahead of us in relation to the support and the resources that they have for their rural congregations, predominantly within the Church of England, but we have been working with them and sharing what we're doing and sharing some of the resources, and they've been giving us some support as well, which we'll talk a wee bit later on. So developing that partnership, because why reinvent the wheel? You know, we have things that we're doing that they're saying, well, that would be really good if we could have a look at that too, and they've got stuff that we're thinking, that would be really good if we could, you know, look at that in the Scottish context. So we have been looking at that. And that really came from a consultation that was done, and I'm going to hand these out. I'm not going to go over them all, but you can read them at your leisure. And it was a consultation that was done and went to the General Assembly, looking at the rural congregations. And thinking about, you know, what does that mean? What does that mean for the Church of Scotland? And then from that, the Rural Working Group were given a remit to look at. And the key findings from that report really looked at, you know, that there was really a positive and a real central role that the rural church played within the Church of Scotland. And sometimes that kind of got, you know, pushed to the side a bit. You know, forgetting that within rural congregations, you know, you cover a huge area sometimes, and that sometimes we get a wee bit fixed on numbers, but actually when you look at it in the rural context, the numbers, if you're really caught up about them, when you think about, you know, the actual population and the geography, can sometimes be higher in terms of percentage than in our urban congregations. And we have to then think about, well, how do we support our rural congregations? How do we make sure that the resources are there, that there are, things that they can tap into? How can we look at training as well? And encouraging, collaboration too, and thinking about how we can work together to give the best support. And one of the things that came out of the consultation was about just how top-heavy some of the governance was. And one of the things we were asked to look at as a rural working group was, how can you streamline all the stuff that comes to us, all the governance side of things, and make it much more user-friendly and pertinent to the rural congregations. And that is something that we took on board and have been looking at and working with other departments within the Church of Scotland to see how we can do that to best support you. So these are the sort of things that came out of the consultation, and you've got a copy of that there, so I'm not going to go over all that. You can read that at your leisure. So then, what did we do? What was our remit? What were we tasked with? Well, it was about raising the profile of rural congregations and rural presbyteries as well. And I would say probably those of us who are here from the rural working group, I'm sure sometimes we become the pain in people's neck because we're always going, what about the rural church? What about rural congregations? And they just go, right, okay, Mandy. So I'm making sure that you're not forgotten about. So if things are being developed, if there are events happening, how do we make sure that our rural congregations are involved? We have been very much trying to pursue sort of the linking in. So when you've got meetings in Edinburgh in one-to-one, well, how can we make sure that people who are coming from a huge distance don't need to come from a huge distance? They can link into that meeting, much more effective as well, and thinking about how we ensure that happens. If there are conferences, how people can link in rather than travelling huge distances and still be part of what is happening. Thinking too about opportunities for mission in rural areas as well, looking at resources and signposting resources, and when there's not resources, making sure that we can try and develop or work with other people or find you resources that are already out there that could be utilised. Also thinking about, and we get lots of queries in, so we sometimes get things to say into Mission Discipleship Council, say, how can we, help us with this? This event came from one of those queries about, digital footprint. How can we support our rural congregations in that? So it's been great to have this event happening today because of that. We also, as we said, are looking at ecumenically, how we ecumenically support rural congregations as well. And then how have we been doing that? Well, first of things is sharing good news stories. Now, we know that there are lots of good things happening out there, but sometimes we're kind of shy. We don't like to, sound our own trumpet, do we? So, sometimes drawing out from people the good things that's happening is quite tough. But there are some brilliant things happening, and we want to make sure that the church as a whole and other churches know about what great things are happening out there. So it is sharing good news stories in the rural context, and looking at how we can have a rural focus input into events. So anything that's happening, making sure that the rural element's in there as well. The web presence as well, and we'll show you some of that later on about having a actual web presence, thinking about forums, and this came from within Ayr Presbytery, where I was involved in setting up a rural forum. And now for some areas they'll say to us, well, we are all rural, so technically we are a rural forum, but for others they're in with urban areas, and sometimes when they're mixed in with urban areas within a presbytery, sometimes the rural can kind of just get sidelined or pushed aside a wee bit. So it was making sure that within bigger presbyteries, the rural congregations and the rural churches had a voice. And one of the ways of doing that was setting up forums to say, look, I was doing visits and they were all telling me the same thing. I said, well, so why are you not one voice, maybe doesn't get heard, but if you all come together, and become a louder voice for the issues that you're all saying you have, and join together. How can you support each other? What can you work together on? So sometimes, we're helping people to look at that and setting up forums to give them a voice together. And again, we were looking at the governance and trying to streamline it and make it a bit more user-friendly. And we worked with the Law Department and the General Trustees, and they were really helpful. And one of the things we put together was a bit like the frequently asked questions, because people were always asking sometimes the same thing. But when they were phoning and trying to get information, they were maybe getting passed from pillar to post. So we were trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. And then we have been working with the Scottish Churches Rural Group, and they have been developing research on rural congregations. They also are very much involved in the Royal Highland Show as well, and working with Germany, the Arthur Rank organisation, to see how we can share and partner together. And that is starting to grow at the moment. So who's on the Rural Working Group? Well, there's me at the moment. Unfortunately, they've got me as the convener. But we have quite a mix of people and quite a geographical spread as well. We have Chris Blackshaw, who is the Pioneer Minister for the farming community down in Ayr Presbytery, and it's great to have Chris joining us as well. We have Heather, as I said, who is our PhD student. We also have people on the Rural Working Group who are on other groups, so that they are there as representatives. So we have Sheila Garson, who is on from Carta, and Sheila's up in Orkney. We have Shirley Grieve, who's from the Ministries Council, but also to do with priority areas. And that was something that came out of one of the road shows that we were doing, and one of the areas was about, well, why are rural congregations not in priority areas? And that's very much being looked at now as well. We have Charlie Smith, who is a representative from Church and Society, and our geographical spread goes from Luce Valley all the way to Orkney. So we have different, and we try to make sure that those that are on the Rural Working Group are from different parts of Scotland. So we're getting, you know, this sort of sense of rural congregations and not just confined to a particular area. We have our meetings in 121, but people link in. So you don't have to travel in for the Rural Working Group meeting, you can link into the meeting as well. And we try and ensure that every meeting we have that facility there. And we, as I say, we have been developing resources. So we have lots of resources that we've been looking at streamlining the governance as well, and some new resources that have just come up just yesterday as well, that Communications Department have been working on, and we'll be telling you a wee bit about those. So I'm going to hand over to Sheila, who's going to look at and lead you through all the resources that we have been looking at and developing and that are available for yourselves.
Yeah, we looked at different types of resources as to what people would need, and we came up with this lovely box. And I don't know, was it just the red button? There we go. These two event boxes that can be, and one of them is housed in Inverness, and the other one is housed in 121. And you can phone up and ask for a rural box when you're putting on an event where you don't have the equipment, but think, oh, that would be really good to do. I think it would be really good if you were going out blanket preaching these days, although you would need to be reasonably near somewhere to get electricity or take a little generator with you. But it has everything that you need. There's two wireless mics, a projector, an HDMI cable, the external DVD, even a laptop, everything that you're going to need. All you need to take with you is your little USB stick and plug it in, and everything will come up for you. As well as extension cables, tie-clip mic, and a step-by-step instruction guide. Even where to plug things in, it's so easy to use. Our next resource is these lovely banners that we had made. This is the 4-in-1, but they're all separate. There's the 3 different ones, and they can be borrowed to use at any event also. They're there for you to use, and they work. I borrowed one for an event, the local, in one of the villages in Newtown. Their community wing had been upgraded, and they were having an open afternoon for all the people who use the wing. And the church used the wing for midweek services, and it's where our choir meet on a Wednesday evening, which is funded by Go For It. So that's another resource that is great to have. So we have a community choir, and they asked if the church would have a part of the display. And so I borrowed one of the banners and used that as a backdrop for the display. And it made such a difference, because it showed that the church was very much there. Then at Princess Street on the Sunday of Assembly, we didn't do it this year, but last year we had a competition as to find out all about the rural church. And it was surprising that people don't realise that 43% of our parishes are rural. And Heather's going to hand out some information. There we go. There's where to find us on. That's Facebook. Is that Facebook or? It's Facebook. We're on Facebook, and there is our Facebook page where we have lots of things. We put on good news stories, we put on events, and lots of things happen in our rural church. Rural churches in Scotland.
Okay, so the next thing that we've been working on is updating the website. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the Church of Scotland website can be difficult to navigate. But we have been trying to work on that, and so it looks like this. So you just type it in, and away you go. I hope you all know that it's churchofscotland.org.uk, but you never know who might be watching on YouTube, so you can look it up there. And when you actually get there, you can go through and you can find just about anything. The easy way, the sort of cheating way of doing it, is type into Google Church of Scotland and then whatever it is you're looking for. Sometimes it'll take you straight to that page. It's wonderful. But otherwise, if you go across to the menu bar called Connect, which is just highlighted there, then you'll see the menu appear. When you look down it, I don't have a little layer on, but when you look down it, can you see right at the very bottom of that list, there's a title, Rural Church. And if you click on that, that will give you a bit of a summary of who we are as the Rural Working Group, what some of the resources are that are available, and then you can go through, you can collect some of the written guides, there are the PDF pages, and there are some of the documents that we're going to talk about just now. You can actually get them an electronic copy, so you can print off as many copies as you want, really. But we have them in person here. So you don't need to rely on rather dodgy rural internet in order to try and get them. Also on this page are Katrina's details. So Katrina Monroe is now our sort of part-time administrative support, and you can contact her to do things like book the rural resource box, the one from Drumnadrochit or the one from 121, and then you can be in touch with her and arrange shipping for that, or arrange how you're going to collect it. The same thing works for the banners, so you can find her details there. Am I covering this one, or are you? Apparently I'm just supposed to keep cracking on. Okay, so we're just going to cover these really quickly because we only have so long, and I'm sure you want to listen to Albert rather than us. And that sounds awful, doesn't it? So the next three resources all fall under the headline Streamlining Governance. The first one is Church Organisation from Scratch, which I think you've already got a copy of. It's one of the ways that we can help small congregations those that have very few volunteers, very few office bearers, try to navigate and go through the different hoops that they need to jump through. This is not just a rural thing, because we know that there are small congregations in urban areas, and again, this can be a really helpful resource for the small congregations even in urban areas. Within this one, you'll see on the front page that it's been developed by the Rural Working Group. It's a helpful guide. It's not a be-all and end-all, this is all the information you need to know about church organisation, but it is helpful as a reference point. It also makes specific reference to circumstances where certain skills may be in short supply. It does not cover every eventuality, but we're hoping that this will help answer some of the general questions. And obviously, if you have any more specific questions, you can contact the various people that are listed in it and go through memory service. I don't have a copy just here, but go through the reference pages at the very back of the church organisation guide. The next one that you've got is, thank you, setting up a rural event. We skipped the frequently asked questions, but I think... Right, okay. Well, I'll cover frequently asked questions in a second. So first of all, you've got the Setting Up the Rural Event Quick Guide, which is a really helpful snapshot, really, of how to put together the likes of a small church show, or a church show at a country show, basically. The frequently asked questions to the General Trustees, as I'm sure you're all very aware, trying to navigate buildings and trying to go through all of these kinds of questions can be quite difficult. So we got in touch with the General Trustees and did a bit of liaising with them in order to make sure that we could go through resources that were actually going to be helpful for those that are in rural congregations, particularly when you have somebody who's coming in as a new office bearer, or when you're addressing an kind of unique situation and thinking, who do I speak to if I want to change something with the building? How do I get in touch with CARTA? How do we go through the various pieces that are part of that? I'm going to hand over to Sheila again, I think. Ooh.
Yeah, how can the Church of Scotland help you? There's lots of ways the Church of Scotland, wider than the Rural Working Group, can help you. As RWG, we have been travelling around the country last year, and lots of people have asked us for resources, and then are surprised that a resource meeting their very need already exists. We have a table of resources with us today, with some demo copies of the resources that you can buy from the Church of Scotland, although there are still quite a lot of free resources available. And you're getting a handout about the congregational learning resource and events that are coming up as well. Within congregational learning, people have been looking at, and people who look after young adults and children. And of course, we know that, you'll probably know that it's been advertised quite a lot, the Year of the Young Person, or the Year of Young People 2018, and we've been looking at what we have for young people and looking at toolkits for you to take away. And if your church hasn't already received one, there's also a leaflet about children's ministry to go with it. We've also brought with us some useful quick guides created by Church Art and Architecture that are free to take away. And we also wanted to highlight the fact that the Church Without Walls team have mission development workers who come out to visit churches for free and help their development in any way that they can. For example, running the Future Focus workshops. And the Church of Scotland have produced a guide on live streaming, which we have included in your packs, as well as the information you will receive today from Sanctuary First. Also got lots of copies of this month's Life and Work, so if you don't already subscribe to Life and Work, or if there's someone in your congregation that you want to try and entice Life and Work with, take the free copy, because there's quite a pile of them. So, you know, have a free one, and hopefully someone will subscribe. I mean, Life and Work has lots of things in it, and you can, it's a very useful toolkit at times. The Sharing Faith resource is a great book to work through in groups to help you share your faith in informal settings. And the Pray It Forward cards can start conversations of support. Great on elders' visits, people have said. The Learning Disability Action Pack is a free resource that helps you look at whether your church could be better for adults with learning disabilities. The Discussion Starter helps you start a conversation about this topic and can be used also in Kirk session meetings for you to, you know, begin to think about how you welcome people with learning disabilities. All of these resources are free, and they can be ordered from the Church of Scotland website. Also in the resources menu is a section called Office Bearers, and I'd like to recommend to you, because as we travel around the nation, we get asked for the session clerk's handbook or the treasurer's fact file. These things don't exist in hard copy, but they do exist online. The Office Bearers section has all the information you could need about the formation of the Kirk, the governance of the Kirk, and good practice in the Kirk. It has links to the Law Department, to the General Trustees, to safeguarding, etc., to make sure that your information is up to date and correct, and it covers everything from the church law to how to chair a meeting. So something for everyone. A really good, full, comprehensive resource. I'm going to go on now to the next one. Oh, that's learning development. Is that the one that you should be at? Keep clicking. That one, that's the one that I was looking for. Mandy's going to come and speak to us on this one, because this is a new resource.
There are lots of resources on the Learn Online. And if you click on that, there are events, there are lots of different resources that you can link into, listen to, or download. But one of the things I just wanted to highlight today is, as you do these things, you know, suddenly, as I was driving up to Inverurie last night, I'm checking my email in the car, because you can, and I was like, oh, new digital resources, and we're having a digital conference today. So, Communications have put out this new resources that they've been developing to help churches improve their websites and social media. So great timing, since we were having our event today. Just unfortunately they released it yesterday, so I couldn't download you and print you out lots of the PDFs, so I apologise for that. But they have put together a collection of information guides for you. So if we just go down a wee bit. So I just wanted to let you see. So if you go onto the Church of Scotland website and just slightly to the right of the page, you'll get the bit about the Kirk launches. And if you click on that, you get this information page down. And if you go to the bottom of the information page, so if we go down a bit, 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 right? A wee bit more. Wee bit more. Oh, there they are there, right. There's a new range of best practice guides, okay? So one about website guidance for churches and a checklist, so if you're developing a website, if you've not got one. Also about social media guidelines, about using Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Visual identity guidelines, so that's about the logos and colours and stuff as well, if you're using that. And the information about photographs, because we know that we do have to be very careful about when we're taking photographs, especially with our children and young people, about permissions, about people's permission to use their photographs, where you're putting those photographs. So there's information there about that as well. So if you click onto the Church of Scotland website, you'll be able to get that information that has just been released yesterday. So you're getting this news hot off the press. And that gives support to what you're going to be hearing about in relation to Sanctuary First and our digital footprint as well. So there are some resources there for you that you can link into that will give you some extra support, and maybe some of the guidelines that just keeps us right with the National Church as well about your requirements of what's okay and what's not okay to be utilised and etc. in terms of our social media. So hopefully that will be of assistance to you as well as what you're going to hear about now.